Alright guys, so here's just hopefully a pretty good, decent view of the pattern or the new Vivid Micro Stealth camouflage pattern, black, applied to the hood of my Subaru Outback, which is a 2008. This vinyl pattern came out in late June of this year, 2020. It was supposed to be released earlier in the year, but because of the whole COVID situation, and since Vvivid is based out of Canada, their government had imposed some restrictions on companies as far as shutting down and quarantine and all that such. Anyway, so again, it is a new release for this year, 2020. It falls in their Premium Plus line, although right now their backing paper, because they were trying to get this out after shortly resuming production, their backing paper is on their XPO line series of vinyl. Hold it out here if you can see that. Simply because they did not have the Premium Plus line backing paper available at the time of production when they were trying to ramp up as fast as possible to get orders out to customers. So anyway, a couple unique things about this that I noticed, and I'll get into it here in a little bit and as a comparison piece to it. So you can see that this is a light shifting kind of vinyl. And it does that. You can kind of see, or you can see, not kind of see, you can see how as I move around, you can see that the light kind of changes the pattern color. And that's because, let's see if I can get in here nice and close. There is a texture pattern on the, you might be able to see some of this like right here. There's a texture pattern in it. And so each of the patterns of these camouflage bits are at different angles and direction, which then reflects light slightly differently. So you can see that. You can also see that it's, it might look a little bit shiny because of the way that it reflects light, but it actually is not a gloss or even a semi-gloss. It just has a sheen to it because of the way it is reflecting the light. It is textured. You can hear my finger scratching on the texture versus say smooth right here, which is Avery. Totally different sound versus. So that texture in the patterns gives it that effect, and you can kind of see it shimmering back and forth. So what I like about it, it is cool and unique. It was easy to apply. Because of the textured pattern, I was kind of assuming it was going to be a lot like their True R carbon fiber, which is in their XPO series. It's an older vinyl. This is their True R carbon fiber. I actually had it on my STI not too long ago on the hood over there. Good carbon fiber vinyl. I liked it a lot. Good to work with. This too does kind of have a light shift, or does have a light shifting effect, if I can get it to show up in the camera here. But it achieves that as well, in that the pattern is also a textured pattern, which you can see there. And you can hear when I rub my finger on it, has that kind of weird scratchy sound to it because of the texture pattern. Again, this is actually a True R carbon fiber. So what I was getting at was, I'd used this, I've been using carbon fiber, True R carbon fiber for several years previously in the XPO line. And across the XPO line, one of the notable things about the vinyl adhesive in particular was that it is very, not very high tack, but it is fairly sticky and high tack. Meaning when you peel it off the backing paper and it touches a substrate, particularly a high surface area substrate, it grabs pretty hard. This new vinyl, because it is in their Premium Plus line, Vvivid has reworked the adhesive to be lower tack on initial contact until you apply a decent amount of pressure, as I discovered, and then give it some heat as well. You may or may not know that Vvivid vinyls, their adhesives are heat activated, meaning once you do apply heat, it will basically grab harder to the substrate that you're applying it to. So when I was applying this, and if you check out my video of me applying it, my walkthrough video in particular, I talk about how I applied it thinking it was a lot like the True R carbon fiber in their True XPO line series. I went to go pull up in particular this side, the driver's side close to the fender, half of the hood, to pop it up to glass it out. And even though on the center here where I had squeegeed it down, the amount that I typically would for True R carbon fiber, once I popped up this side here to try to glass it out, the center hinge that I created actually popped off because it was low tack. So that was kind of neat. Just something I wasn't anticipating. Again, I think just mentally, because it looked kind of similar to the True R carbon fiber. It had the same feel as far as thickness goes, the textured multi-directional surface. It was black, blah, blah, blah. I assumed it would be a little bit more sticky, and it wasn't. That being said, how did it apply? It actually applied very well. Despite being low tack, once I got it locked in place, everything was good. It was easy to work with. It was very conformable. You can see that in this particular hood, there's a fairly deep channel here, right? So there's a pretty sharp, steep curve here, and a longer that turns into a steep curve that goes down into a valley here. Typically, you could bridge it over, but then I felt that across here, the amount of stretch that would go straight down into this recess was going to be too much of a stretch. I estimated at greater than 10%, so I was able to feed it in and work it in. As far as curves and corners go, it was easy to maneuver. I installed this in my garage area where I am presently taking this video, and it was about 85 degrees inside the garage, so it was pretty warm, again, which also surprised me in that because it was so warm, I thought this would grab, the vinyl would grab on the hood way harder than it did. If this was True R, I probably would have had to put tack reducer down first across the main body. This one, not at all. It's like, it was almost as if there was tack reducer on there, so to speak. Anyway, so I put it down. It conformed really nicely around these curves, where I got to be a little bit fingery as I was getting on these curves here, multi-compound curves here, where you got going down this way to a point, etc., and then curving back up. And some fingers were forming. It has softened it with heat, just very little, just enough to warm it up, and it pulled right out basically. With minimal pulling or stretch. It just basically relaxed it without distorting the film or the pattern. So as far as ease of install, ease of install, I would probably rate on a scale of 10, 10 being pretty easy, 1 being very, very difficult. Once I adjusted and accommodated for the low tack of the vinyl itself and the adhesive itself, I would say I would probably put it at about an 8. And the only reason an 8 is because it is a little bit thicker film than your typical, so for example, Avery, which I have right here on this green, or even this matte black that I put underneath the eyelids of underneath the headlights there, kind of as, not eyelids necessarily. It is kind of thick relative to, say, Avery, which is already a very thin vinyl to begin with. And because of that, you have to account for it. Also, like I said, when I was working on getting these curves here, I did give it a little bit of heat because it's thicker and pattern. I did not want to stretch and pull too much, whereas something that's just a single solid color, you can stretch it pretty good, and you're not going to distort any kind of pattern here. You give it a good stretch here, you're going to distort the patterns here. You're also going to distort the texture inside of it, which would then alter or destroy the light shifting effect that the texture has. Anyhow, it applied very well and smoothed out, so I just gave enough heat to smooth it out. So yeah, given the thickness of the film, and then considering this as far as install, where you have to be a little bit more cognizant of that when you're doing it, I knocked it down just a little bit to an 8 out of 10. Simply because of that particular factor. But as far as slidability, repositionability, it was very good, very easy to work with, and installed quite well, I thought. Like I said, it's been on for 2 weeks now. I'm here in Nebraska in the summer, and so it's been pretty hot and sunny, easily greater than 80 degrees every day for over the last 2 weeks, to include some rain, actually a decent amount of rain in the last 2 weeks here, as well as cooler temperatures overnight. Those rains did bring some cooler temperatures for a few days, and no bubbles, no lifting, even on the areas where I had to heat and kind of give it a little bit of stretch to conform. All of my corners are still sitting nice and pretty. All the edges are good. No lifting on any of these edges here. So I'm very, very happy and satisfied with it so far. Again, very easy to install. Beginner level, I would say. Beginners should feel pretty comfortable using this. So what don't I like about it, since I've been going on about what I like? The only thing really I don't like about it is, you can see it here in this video, any kind of patterned vinyl will have a repeating pattern in it. They make these giant rolls, so of course they're going to have a repeating pattern versus it being completely randomized for the entire 75 foot by 5 foot long roll or 100 feet long roll. What I don't like about this is you can see the repeating pattern very easily. You can distinctly see columns and rows. You can see these columns of light shifting ones, dark shifting ones here in the pattern. And so it actually kind of, to me, is reminiscent of when automotive manufacturers are driving a new test mule and they put that crazy pattern all over the car, so that it's hard for those photographers that are trying to get early sneak peeks to get a true image of the body lines of the car. So that's actually what this reminds me of. But over the last 2 weeks, despite that, I've actually come to like it. You know, it's pretty cool. I'm definitely going to leave it on a lot longer. It's not anything, that one con that I noticed isn't anything that would make me want to go ahead and pull this off and just, you know, maybe finish off the hood in matte metallic green, which is matte metallic moss green, the Avery color here. The only other con that I can think of and it's not even really a con, more so than a pro, is the low tack of the adhesive. Again, initially I wasn't mentally ready for it, if you will, thinking that it was going to act more like XPO carbon fiber, and it actually just, you know, once I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be low tack like that. It was super easy to install once I was able to get my mind and adjust my style and technique for installing it. But if you weren't ready for it, thinking it was going to be like this XPO series, which has a higher tack on initial tack, it's not an issue at all. For those that have never installed Vvivid or any other brand with high or low tack, or installed at all, it's probably an irrelevant factor to consider. So would I recommend this? Sure, absolutely I would. As far as ease of install, kind of a cool, unique look. Again, the only thing I don't in particular like, which others may or may not like as well, is the repeating pattern in it. So also, I guess it's almost ironic in a sense that this is camouflage, right? Which camouflage is meant to hide or make you not be able to be seen. But because of the light shifting pattern on this, which creates almost a sheen or reflective factor to it, it's kind of anti-camouflage in a sense. But hey, that's just semantics at this point. So next part of the video will be just a quick demonstration of applying and the tack and everything else, as far as comparing it to the XPO carbon fiber, which I have on hand right now.